Welcome. I'm here with Irina Dashevsky. She's a partner at Greenspoon, Marder, and co-chair of the Cannabis group. Irina, it's great to have you with us. How are you?
Hey, I'm well and happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Really happy to have you guys here. Always a pleasure to have Greenspoon, Marder. Kick us off by telling us a little bit about Greenspoon, Marder. What does it do?
Sure. So Greenspoon Marder is a full-service law firm. It's nationwide, so it's got offices all across the country. And specifically with respect to cannabis, it's one of the first entrants into the cannabis industry. I believe the firm got into the cannabis space 2015, which predates when most major law firms of this stature and size were getting into the space. So Jerry Greenspoon, who is the named partner of the firm, was kind of a visionary in that regard. So with respect to cannabis, we also have a really deep bench of all services legal vis-a-vis cannabis, which I think is a really cool differentiating factor for the firm, meaning our IP guy has done cannabis IP. You know, our litigators have litigated cannabis matters. Our regulatory folks have done cannabis regulatory all throughout the country, that kind of thing. So a lot of built-in expertise, which is a cool value add to clients.
It's fantastic, of course. Yeah. So when it comes to the legal side of cannabis, which is obviously one of the most important parts, what do you think are some things that are commonly misunderstood, not known, just maybe that, you know, companies in the cannabis space aren't aware of and are kind of overlooked that could cause them issues?
That's a really big question. I think for those kind of thinking about the industry and on the outside looking in, so whether it's investors or companies thinking about being into cannabis, I don't think they realize how difficult it is to operate in the cannabis space, how difficult profitability is because of certain issues like 280 of the tax code, the cost of being compliant and really, really heavily regulated.
Sure.
I think the biggest thing, for example, for new license winners across the country, both here in Illinois and New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, everyone's rolling out licenses. There's a big conversation about social equity. There's a big conversation about the need for capital. And all those things underpinning those, I think it's a really difficult business to be in.
Sure.
And so it's not as simple as, I'm just running a retail store and it's kind of like a 7-Eleven and we'll figure it out. Like, you will figure it out. It's just a tremendous amount of work.
Sure. Makes a lot
and I
of sense.
think many don't expect it. They don't expect it to be that hard.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And so when you guys are working with a new company in the cannabis space, you're working with a new client, there's an onboarding process, whatever it may be, what are some of the things that you talk with them first about? What does a client experience look like with Greenspoon Marder?
So specifically, it's like all about a kind of well-rounded, fulsome counseling experience. So you might ask me for a very specific contract, but we're probably going to go broader with you to understand endgame, to understand objectives, and we'll counsel you. And if we see something, and this is where the deep expertise in cannabis itself comes in, right? Like, you might bring a deck to us and say, I want to invest in this company. We're going to do more than just a review of the deck. We're going to say, hey, we've noticed a couple things here that might really change the trajectory, and let's do a deeper dive in those things. But they're cannabis-specific things, right? The way you're cultivating, maybe the type of lighting you're using, maybe the type of output you're getting. And then if certain things in the supply chain change,
sure,
that could affect, the future projections there. We're going to try to flag those things.
Sure.
So it's not just like, oh, we reviewed this document or PPM and it looks fine from a contractual perspective.
Sure.
We're going to talk about, a bigger picture thing. And I think most clients have found that really valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That deep look, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're looking forward then at the cannabis industry, where we're going, the regulations that we have, the regulatory framework that we've established but are certainly still working on, where do you see this industry going next in terms of the laws that we're going to have around the cannabis industry itself?
Man, you're asking me to prognosticate here, and it's a tough question. So look, lately I've been talking about things at the federal level. I think it's not a mystery that the cannabis industry is in a really tough spot right now with kind of the lack of access to capital from, the newest entrants to kind of even the more established MSOs, right? Capital markets are in a bear position. It's not ideal. So I think there's a lot more pressure on our federal government to kind of marry the odds that we're at. We have this robust $25+ billion industry that continues to be federally legal, can't access the things that it needs to survive, like it's survival mode, and then obviously thrive. So I think how and what happens at the federal legal level as far as some form of legalization. So whether it's safe banking, whether it's the Climb Act, whether it's, the MORE Act and more of a decriminalization and total social equity cannabis is legal overhaul, those are going to affect the state regulatory regimes. Mm-hmm. I don't know how yet. I would be pretty surprised if, largely they weren't still in place, mm-hmm. right? The state licensing schemes and all that. But I think, we have to think about what it's going to look like when the producers of cannabis on the West Coast, who can do it, outside and have the more adaptable climate and can get into volume, going to start transporting and distributing it to the East Coast.
Sure.
What's going to happen to your cultivation facility that costs you tens of millions of dollars to build up in a cold factory climate, right? And costs you a ton of energy and money to run. Got to recover those costs for the goods you're selling.
Sure.
So I think, those are the kinds of questions and the changes that I see. I just don't know what it'll look like, but.
It's a tough question for sure, but those are some
Loaded
really good
question.
insights.
Thanks.
Well, what's the easiest way for any companies to get in touch with Greenspoon Marder if they want to schedule a consultation, work further with you guys?
Our website. We're all on the website. We're also out and about always. So I think whether it's pinging us on the website or, LinkedIn maybe? Yeah.
LinkedIn. Either way works.
Yeah.
Well, we're super excited to have you guys here. It's an absolute pleasure, as always, to have Greenspoon Marder. Irina, thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy to be here.